Welcome to Tech Tuesday from All Sides with Amy Juravich, a show where we share stories about science, technology, and the future of our environment. We cover a wide range of the latest discoveries, technologies, and stories about space during our weekly Tech Tuesday segments. However, few have done more to popularize and bring science to a level for everyone to understand than Neil deGrasse Tyson. He will be hosting the Cosmic Perspective right here in Columbus. But what does he have to say about the future of space exploration and about scientists here on Earth? Joining us now is Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist, author, and science communicator. Welcome to the show, Dr. Tyson.
Thanks for having me. And why do you only do science on Tuesdays?
We came up with a gimmick called Tech Tuesday, and here we are.
Tech Tuesday.
Yeah.
I guess Tech Wednesday doesn't quite ring.
Doesn't have the same ring
way,
to it. No,
okay.
no. We went with the T's.
Okay.
All right. So next week, Wednesday, March 25th, you're going to be presenting what's called Cosmic Perspective at the Mershon Auditorium right here on Ohio State's campus. Can you tell us a little bit about the event? What's a Cosmic Perspective?
Well, first, it's not my first visit to the Mershon Auditorium. I'm delighted and honored to be asked to return. And when I'm invited to a city and a theater, what I do is I offer them a dozen, 15 possible topics that I can speak on. And then the host, based on their knowledge of the audience and whatever is prevailing in the news, they'll pick a topic that they judge to be most relevant. And that's then the topic that I deliver. So in that sense, it's not a tour where you're trying to sell something, although I always do have a book that one can buy. There's always a book that's like floating, but that's not the goal of this. And so they picked a Cosmic Perspective, which it's the most philosophically deep subject of all the talks that I give, because it attempts to reset for you, or set perhaps for the first time, what our place is, what our relationship is to each other on Earth, what our relationship is to the planet and to the universe itself. And it can be so enlightening, so mind expanding, that ideas that you had before that were either petty or provincial, or they just evaporate away. And you come away with a completely different outlook in the world. And so my goal is, at the end of our time together in that theater, of course it's illustrated. I have images and some videos and things and me talking, but all combined at the end of that, I want you to walk away saying, I feel like I'm a different person.
Wow. Okay. Does it get into our place in this universe? Like, do you talk about whether there is other life out there or if it's just us?
Well, so I do touch on that. However, there's an entire other talk. You can invite me back if you like, called "The Search for Life in the Universe."
Okay. Well, they didn't pick that one. Yeah.
Yeah, they picked that one. I can't cram it all into the one talk. But yes, a sense of how are we rare? Are we, here's, for me, perhaps the most profound dimension of this. On Earth, as humans, we tend to think of being special as being different from everybody else. Oh, you're special. Whereas in the universe, I actually take the opposite view. I realize, as an astrophysicist, that one of our great gifts to civilization in the 20th century was the discovery that our atoms are traceable to events in the Big Bang and in the life and death of stars that preceded our sun in the evolution of the universe. And so it's not just figuratively true, it is literally true that we are stardust. And so when I look up at the night sky, I feel special, not because I'm different from the universe, but because I'm the same. And there's a sense of participation for us all when we look up. And at the extreme limit of that, you can realize, yes, we're alive in the universe, but because the handiwork of stars, manufacturing all the elements where, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron in our blood, all of that came from stars. So in a way, not only are we alive in the universe is alive within us.
Wow. So
And that's
being Stardust makes you feel so big and so small at the same time.
yes, yeah. See, there you go.
Yeah.
You got it. You don't even have to come.
Oh, I got the
Next week.
talk. Yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
Well, since you're coming to Ohio, I just wanted to look at Ohio and our place in the world of space. Have you ever done any work at NASA's Glenn Research Center in Cleveland?
No, I've worked for NASA, but we all know the Glenn Center. I mean,
Mhm.
it's plus Ohio has no shortage of astronauts who were born there.
We got a few.
Plus,
Yeah.
I'm disappointed you guys didn't jump in ahead of North Carolina, whose license plate says first in flight. So leaving people to think that the Wright brothers were from North Carolina.
No,
This is
we have birthplace of aviation. That's our license plate.
oh,
Birthplace. Yeah.
okay.
I didn't make it up, man. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. That's good.
Mm.
So Ohio's a special place in many people's hearts and minds for those reasons, especially.
There's been a lot of talk over the past year with the Trump administration and how much money from the federal government we should be putting into science. What are your thoughts on federal funding versus private funding and where taxpayer funding should go when it comes to science?
Yeah, I don't, as a matter of personal philosophy, I learned maybe 10 to 15 years ago just to not tell people what to do.
Mm.
Okay? To say how should we spend? I'm not that guy. All right? Yes, I have a huge platform, social media platform with like all combined tens of millions of followers. So I could be just pontificating, telling people who they should vote for, how they should. But I don't do that. I don't do that. Instead, what I will tell you is the consequences of your actions or inactions. And then you decide. This is a free country. You decide. So in this past year, 10,000 PhD scientists have evaporated from the ranks of the U.S. government. These are people who are rotating in the capacity as advisors, others that took early retirement because the funding climate was constricted. And you can ask, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, I can tell you that private enterprise, yeah, they have R&D. They do. However, that R&D at some point has to tack into their quarterly report or their annual report. Whereas government-funded research is way more fundamental than that, way deeper in the pipeline, so that you might not see how that matters years, possibly even decades later. And that is the government investing in its own future. And so it's weird when I hear members of Congress review paper titles from the National Science Foundation, of course, a government agency, and they say, "Oh, what relevance could that possibly have? That sounds stupid. Let's not fund that." You have no idea what role today's science will play in the future if it's basic science. You just don't know. And so you kind of have to fund it all. And to pass judgment on it in that way is to shoot ourselves in the foot. So if we do that, again, I'm an if-then guy. So if we constrict things in this way and rely only on science that you can see a product at the end of a quarterly report, then fundamental science goes out the window. Other countries who do not feel that way will rise up, and we will be chasing after them, saying, could you let us in the room? Could you buy our products, even though your products are better because they're based on more fundamental science that we neglected? So yeah, I grew up, I'm shaped in the 20th century with the United States led in practically every dimension of science. And our economy shows that it pumps our health, our wealth, and our security. Without it, we might as well just move back to the Stone Ages.
This is Tech Tuesday from All Sides on 89.7 NPR News. We're talking about space and science with Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist, author, and science communicator. We have done a few shows about the future of space exploration being dominated by private companies like SpaceX instead of being publicly funded through NASA. What do you think about this change to more private space travel? I guess I'll use the word travel.
It's not space exploration when it's done by private enterprise. It's a space industry. That's different. SpaceX, unless it's a vanity project for them, they're not going to have a rover to a place that's never been explored before. There's no business model for that. So let's distinguish this. When SpaceX first took cargo to the space station, there were banner headlines saying, "New future of space, private enterprise." SpaceX did what NASA had been doing for 20 years, bringing cargo to the space station. So this is not the first time private enterprise has come in after the fact. Columbus, the first, European to the New World, funded by Spain, they didn't say, "Oh, Chris, when you come back, give us a slideshow on the new life forms you see." No, it was find a shorter route to the Indies. And by the way, make any other discoveries you can so that other things can follow. So only after he could tell us where the trade winds were, where the hostiles were, where the friendlies were, only after that did the Dutch East India Trading Company rise up. Okay? So private enterprise, if it's really expensive, is not doing the frontier research. That's just not how it has ever worked. And I don't see it happening that way going forward. SpaceX in January launched their 11,000th satellite. Yeah, they weren't the first to launch satellites. Governments were. All right? And then you come in after. Just to be clear, the Postal Service doesn't have their own airplanes. They rent space in the bellies of commercial airplanes because delivering mail is not a frontier activity. Okay, so let's just be clear and present about this. So yeah, there's always been a place for private enterprise in the exploration of space, not as the frontier, because the government has geopolitical reasons for going to the moon, for going to Mars, for going back to the moon. That's what's driving it.
So, so the
Elon might say, "Oh, I got a rocket that'll get us there." Then we'll buy the rocket off of him. Yeah. But it's not his initiative that does it.
So the geopolitical reasons. So there's no money for SpaceX to make by us going to Mars. But if America wants to be the first in Mars, then maybe SpaceX will help. I don't know.
Yeah. So SpaceX, if China says, I'm making this up, of course. If China says they want to put military bases on Mars. We're going to be in Mars in 10 months, okay? That's the kind of forcing that got us to the moon in the 1960s, when Russia, the perceived or real threat that Russia represented, the godless communists, showing the world their technologies, and here we are, a free country trying to show that we're the best, and they were beating us at everything. The first satellite, the first animal, like the dog, the first human, the first woman, the first dark-skinned person. Remember, Cuba was on their side, and they got dark-skinned people in Cuba. They beat us at everything, and so we turned around and said, we got to beat them at something. So we go to the moon first, and we say, we win, and we look over our shoulder, and they're not there. And so we just end the program. That's evidence that it's completely geopolitically driven. And so at the moment, there's not an economic case for going to Mars. Once we set it up and we know what the cost limits are, maybe SpaceX will say, let's have a tourist journeys to Mars. Like we have basically it's tourism now with the suborbital, the Bezos Branson billionaire boys space race. Right. They're going up with civilians. So just we need to keep separate in our head space exploration from the commercialization of space. The frontier, if it's expensive, is not commercializable immediately until you have other factors that are well understood and characterized.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about teaching science and science literacy. I mean, that's a part of what you've devoted your career to. What do you think is being done well, or how are we doing with teaching the next generation of scientists right now?
Yeah, bad. Sorry. Bad. And I don't think it's anybody's fault, because I don't think we knew. You go back over the decades, science was treated as a satchel of facts, a book of information. You remember your science books. There'd be vocabulary words that would be boldface, and you'd be tested on those. So science was treated like any other subject. You learn this body of knowledge, and then you put it back on the test. The problem is, science is not really that. Science, the practice of science, is the development of methods and tools to query nature, to learn what is objectively true and what is not. And the methods are designed to ensure that you do not fool yourself into thinking something is true that is not, or that something is not true that is. Did I say that right? I wanted
Maybe.
one to be the opposite of
Yeah,
the other.
yeah. I think you got there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. So as a result, look at what happened with COVID, and we have a vaccine that rolls out, and just even before the vaccine, what should have happened, and I knew this in real time. I'm not just being Monday morning quarterback for the Sunday game. I knew this at real time. They should have said, here's the latest of our understanding of this novel virus. It may be transmitted by liquids or fluids on surfaces, so clean your surfaces and your groceries when you come in. Check in a week when we have more data, better evidence, and we might update this advice. But that's not what happened. People were turning to government officials expecting the facts that are immutable and that would not be modifiable as you go forward. That is not how the moving frontier of science works. And when everyone is participating in that frontier, because we're trying to characterize this novel virus, the novel virus, we're trying to get a vaccine for it. Everybody's just waiting for a fact and a rule to follow, rather than recognize they're bearing witness to the moving frontier of science. And you got to, and you do the best you can at any given moment, awaiting the next round of research. Had people been trained to think of science that way, then the officials would not have been spooked to give you partial information, because you'd realize that's how it works on the frontier. And everyone would have just been excited, maybe even, or intrigued by a front row seat in how science works. So again, it's not the knowledge base you acquire. It is, how is your brain wired for thinking about discovery on the frontier? Science is more that than it is anything else.
Here in Columbus, we have a pretty famous hands-on science museum called COSI. It's won lots of national awards.
Very well known.
Yeah. Do you feel like something like that can inspire future scientists if our schools are just teaching us the vocabulary words?
Yeah. So the most lasting influences on me growing up were visits to science museums. Okay. It was a long while before I ever got to Ohio. I'm a native of New York City, but I visited the Boston Museum of Science, a very well-known place, almost as storied as COSI, and there were immersive exhibits there I still remember to this day. And the immersion is very important, because then you're surrounded by the science. It's not just words on a page in front of you that you then have to memorize. You become a participant in it. And I've asked people who've been to various key museums across the country, science museums, what exhibit do you remember the most from childhood? And they always give you the same answer. Always. In Philadelphia, in the Franklin Museum, there's the living heart that you walk through. And you hear I don't know if it's still there, but it was there when all the people I asked about. And you're like moving along one of the ventricles, and you just feel and hear the heartbeat. People never forget that. Never. In the Boston Museum of Science, there was a 5-story tall. It might have been smaller because I might be exaggerating that because I was just a little kid. So I think it was 5-story tall.
Yeah.
Van de Graaff generator, that silver ball where lightning jumps off of it. But this is 5 stories tall, and there's lightning sparks, and you see this. And it was like, I still remember that. I'm sorry, I remember that. And so, did I become a scientist because of it? I don't know, probably not. But my awareness of how people can think about science and how they're exposed to science, and to realize science empowers you. It empowers you to know when other people have no clue what they're talking about. How about that?
How about that? I'm so inspired right now. I want to run to COSI and have an experience like that.
Yes.
Just to end on, before I let you go, what is something looking forward? What is a discovery that you're most excited about in the realm of your career? Like what is coming up in science? We talked a little bit about COVID. We talked a little bit about going to Mars. What excites you right now?
I like the fact that we're searching for life in the universe, and James Webb Space Telescope has been deputized in that role. It's currently in a whole cottage industry within astrophysics. It's studying the atmospheric composition of planets that move across this sight line to a host star. And when that happens, light from the star passes through the atmosphere, and the chemistry of the atmosphere leaves its fingerprint in the light of the star. And then you can see, are there gases there that are derivable from life? Like oxygen in Earth's atmosphere is here only because there's life that generates it. There's no other source of oxygen, of free oxygen on Earth than its production through photosynthesis, plant life and plankton and the like. So that's one way to search for it, because you can't see the surface of the planet. They're too far away. So this is a secondary indicator of it. We're still searching the soils of Mars. Maybe there are aquifers. We know there's water on Mars, and every place on Earth where there's water, there's life. So this search for life, I think, is quite exciting. And I'd like to know that in my lifetime, that we'll have the answer to whether there's life anywhere other than Earth in our solar system, in our backyard. I want to know that before I die.
We are talking about space and science with Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist, author, and science communicator. He will be here in Columbus on March 25th presenting a show called The Cosmic Perspective. Thank you so much for joining us today, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Excellent. Thanks for having me. Oh, can I give one last plug? It's a fast plug.
Plug away.
A quick plug. I feel cheap doing this, but I got it because we just talked about the search for life.
Yeah.
In 2 months, in May, I have a book coming out titled "Take Me to Your Leader."
What a good title! All right.
And it's a primer on how you should think and behave in your first encounter with an alien, and it brings to factor the laws of physics, expectations you might have, how you might look, how alien you would look to the alien, right? Imagine you make friends with the alien, and then you say, "Oh, excuse me, I have to lay down and be semi-comatose for 1/3 of Earth's rotation. I'll get back to you in 8 hours," right? The alien will say, "What?"
Okay.
So it's an attempt to reset the conversation about our expectations of them and their expectations of us.
All right. Well, we will check out that book in May, and we look forward to seeing you in just about a week here in Columbus. Thank you so much for joining us.
I look forward to coming back.
Thank you.
Thank you.